Equalizer 2 is directed by Antoine Fuqua, one of my favorite directors working today, and it also stars Denzel Washington reprising his role as Robert McCall, the badass from the first one. First Equalizer came out a few years ago. This one is the sequel, the follow-up. It also stars Melissa Leo from the first movie, and it stars a couple of newcomers. Pedro Pascal is in this movie, as well as this young kid named Ashton Saunders. Without giving too much away, here's the bare bones of the story in Equalizer 2. Something very tragic and personal happens to someone that Denzel Washington is very close to. Although if you've seen the trailer, you pretty much know who I'm talking about, but I'm going to try to keep it vague just in case you haven't seen any trailers. Something really bad happens to somebody that Denzel's character is very close to, and he of course tries to look into it to figure out what happened and why. And the deeper he delves into this, the bigger the conspiracy grows, and so he wages a one-man war against the people responsible, and that is basically the plot of Equalizer 2. Like I said before, Antoine Fuqua is one of my all-time favorite directors, man. I mean, I think I've liked or loved almost all of his movies. What's my favorite Antoine Fuqua movie? Oh, Training Day, easily. I didn't have to think about that shit. There are very few movies in my lifetime that are as infinitely quotable as Training Day. I'm just saying, oh, you motherfuckers. Okay. I'm putting cases on all you bitches. You think you could... Jake! You think you could do this to me? You motherfuckers will be playing basketball in Pelican Bay when I get through with you. Shoot program, nigga. 23-hour lockdown.
King Kong ain't got shit on me.
I'm just saying there are a few quotes that have stuck with me through my passion of cinema, and that is one of them for some strange reason. Once again, Antoine Fuqua brings his signature style to this movie, and I do appreciate it, just like I appreciate it with all the rest of his movies. In particular, I really like what he brings to the action scenes. There's a very gritty, very violent edge that he brings to a lot of the action sequences in his films. The type of action sequences in these Equalizer films are just so goddamn brutal. They're the type of action scenes that make you just go, ooh, oh, shit! You're pretty much reacting like that throughout the entire action scene because that's how gripping it is, that's how brutal it is, and that's how Antoine Fuqua likes to shoot his action. Up close and personal, just the way I like it. And if you thought Denzel Washington was a badass as Robert McCall in the first one, well, guess what? He's just as much of a badass, if not more of a badass in this one. And performance-wise, I mean, it's boring to say that Denzel Washington gave a good performance. It's easier just to say Denzel was Denzel. I also liked the relationship between him and Melissa Leo that was established in the first film that was followed up on in this one. Just like the first film, she's not in the movie all that much, but when she is there, she adds something. I don't know what it is, but she adds something. And I also really like the relationship that developed between Denzel Washington's character and this kid played by Ashton Saunders. This is a kid who keeps getting caught up in trouble, but Denzel Washington's character kind of takes him under the wing for the movie, and it was really cool seeing that mentor and student type of relationship. There was a real bond that was established, and that was one of the things that was focused on in this movie that I really appreciated. I also want to shout out Pedro Pascal. Pedro Pascal, I feel like, is an underrated actor, and he gave a really good performance in this film as well. Now, you notice I got through all the positives of the movie, and I said nothing about the structure of the movie itself, or the villains, or the story. Well, there's a reason for that, unfortunately. There was real potential here to personalize the villain and their story in this film, have it really connect to Robert McCall's character in a very personal way, but unfortunately that never materializes. The setup for the villain in this movie is incredibly weak, it's very predictable, and unfortunately they didn't do enough to get me invested in that personal relationship, that personal dynamic between the villain and the hero. Everything about the way the villain was set up in this movie feels very rushed, it feels very undercooked. When we get to the big finale of the film where there's cool action stuff going down, I mean, yeah, it's cool action stuff, but it also feels kind of anticlimactic. I gotta say, honestly, the entire film feels anticlimactic. It takes a long time before things get rolling in this one. Pretty much the first hour of this movie is endless scenes of Denzel having endless conversations with certain people that you may care about or you may not, and then they might throw in an action scene or two just to remind you, hey, he's still the badass Equalizer from the first movie, even though the action scenes themselves don't really have anything to do with the plot. About halfway through this movie, I realized that the subplots of the movie were getting more attention and getting more momentum behind them than the actual story of the movie. It just takes a really long time. A lot of it feels like setup. Like halfway through the movie, I'm just sitting there like, oh my god, are we going to get going here? I mean, come on, I'm watching a movie here. I feel like the movie hasn't actually started. And I think there might be a reason for that. Unfortunately, I think that reason might be that there actually isn't much of a story here. The story here is lollygagging. It feels like it's going through the motions. It feels like it's stuck in quicksand at times. And by the time it actually starts to pick up, I had lost interest. Another thing that pops up with the story, which it feels like a plot hole, but it's not a plot hole, and I can't really talk about it because it would be a spoiler. But I think the best way that I can say it is that the why of the movie, like the why of the story itself, is not really explained all that well. There's a certain thing that happens, and then that leads to another thing happening, and then that leads to the story actually getting started. But they don't really delve into the why of the thing that started it in the first place. And so I felt like the story itself was built on a very flimsy foundation. I don't mean to bang on Equalizer 2. It does have very good action scenes. The performances are really good. The music's pretty good too. But in the end, the pacing in this movie is ass. The story doesn't really go anywhere or engage me. And the villains were very poorly developed. And I came away massively disappointed with the Equalizer 2. I somewhat enjoyed my time watching Equalizer 2, but it was a letdown. And so I'm going to say it's just above average by giving it Man of Steel Golden Age. Alright guys, those are my thoughts on the Equalizer 2. I don't know if I've ever asked you this before, but fuck it, let's do it again. What is your favorite Denzel Washington movie of all time? Comment below and let me know. Like and subscribe to the Superfan Show. And if you like what you see, tell me how you feel and stay tuned to hear more from the Man of Steel. Peace.